Imagine looking at a global map of the conversational AI market right now in 2026.
Okay.
If you're visualizing market share, I mean, the board is basically painted in just two colors,
Yeah, pretty much just two.
right? You have ChatGPT commanding this massive 68% of the market, which is mostly driven by its advanced reasoning capabilities.
Sure.
And then you have Google's Gemini surging up to grab like 18.2%, largely because of how seamlessly it integrates into the Google Workspace ecosystem.
Right, it's just everywhere you already work.
Exactly. So when you put those together, that is an 86.2% duopoly. I mean, two tech giants are holding almost the entire board.
It's staggering, really.
It is. But if you zoom in on Europe and specifically look at a quiet, deep tech hub like Tampere, Finland, that map looks completely different. I mean, they are actively rewriting the rules of the game.
They really are. And, if you are listening to this, whether you're a European business leader running a small to medium enterprise, chief technology officer, or even a developer tasked with evaluating AI architecture for your company right now.
Right.
This divergence is exactly what you need to be paying attention to. Today's deep dive is fundamentally about competitive survival.
So what are we actually looking at today to understand this?
We are unpacking a highly detailed 2026 research report from AetherLink.
Okay, the Dutch firm.
Yeah, they're a Dutch AI consulting firm, and they're known for three specific product lines. They've got Aetherbot for AI agents, Aethermind for strategy, and AetherDVE for development.
Got it.
And our mission today is to extract the insights from their latest data to understand how navigating this new European landscape, specifically by leveraging multiple language models and turning strict compliance into an actual sales asset, it's rapidly becoming a massive revenue driver.
The scale of that global duopoly we mentioned, it really is staggering. It's a level of concentration we haven't seen since the very early days of cloud computing.
Yeah, it's huge.
ChatGPT has that massive first-mover advantage deeply integrated into enterprise systems, and Gemini is just flexing Google's infrastructure muscle.
Exactly.
If you're an enterprise, picking between them seems like the obvious strategic choice. I mean, the data even shows that 73% of enterprise leaders believe choosing between these two basically dictates their customer retention and efficiency.
Right. It represents the default path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Forrester Research actually reports that enterprises using ChatGPT are seeing 34% faster response times and customer service compared to legacy systems.
Wow, 34%.
Yeah, and Gemini workflows are showing 28% efficiency gains. So the business case for the duopoly is undeniably strong on paper.
On paper, yeah.
But when you apply that default path to the European market, it is suddenly full of operational landmines. And that brings us directly to the EU AI Act, which, has been reshaping the environment since January 2024.
Right. The EU AI Act is essentially the great fragmenter of the European AI market.
It really is.
It introduces a level of friction that North American companies simply don't have to deal with in the same way.
Precisely. I mean, the Act imposes incredibly stringent governance requirements based on risk categories.
Which makes sense, but it's tough.
It is. If you're deploying what they classify as a high-risk AI system, you are subjected to a whole new world of oversight. And it's important to understand that any customer-facing chatbot that processes personal data or makes decisions...
That automatically falls into the high-risk category.
Yes, automatically. You are suddenly required to maintain mandatory transparency logging, conduct regular bias audits, and implement very strict human-in-the-loop protocols.
Let's explore the mechanics of that human-in-the-loop requirement, because that's huge.
It is.
It means the AI infrastructure is legally prohibited from going rogue and making a final call on something sensitive, right?
Exactly.
So if a chatbot is handling credit decisions, processing legal queries, or touching healthcare information, the system architecture must include a documented, auditable trail.
Yep.
One that automatically escalates the interaction to a human agent before a final decision is executed.
That is exactly how the architecture has to function, and the friction doesn't even stop there.
Of course not.
There's also the data minimization rule under the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. You cannot retain customer conversation data beyond 30 days unless you have explicitly documented consent.
Which requires complex database management just to auto-purge those records.
Exactly. Just getting the green light to launch one of these high-risk bots requires a formal AI impact assessment. In practical terms, that assessment alone can easily add 3 to 6 weeks to a company's deployment timeline.
So if we think about this practically, deploying an out-of-the-box, ungoverned version of ChatGPT is, well, it's like buying an incredibly fast, state-of-the-art race car.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. It has immense power and incredible speed. But when you try to drive it in Europe, you realize it isn't street legal.
Right. It doesn't have the required mirrors or whatever.
Exactly. The emission standards are all wrong, and you don't actually have the specific regulatory license to operate it on these roads. So you have all this power, but you can't legally deploy it where your customers are.
And because that race car isn't street legal out of the box, the AetherLink report shows a massive shift in adoption patterns.
What kind of shift?
Privacy-first language models are stepping in to fill the void. Anthropic's Claude, for example, positions itself entirely around constitutional AI safeguards.
Right.
In the Nordics, where the culture of data protection is deeply ingrained, Claude has hit a 9% adoption rate, which is triple the global average.
Triple. Well,
Yeah. And in Tampere specifically, which serves as a sort of microcosm for European tech innovation, 34% of local enterprises are actively evaluating these privacy-focused alternatives.
that brings up a really crucial shift in mindset that the report highlights. Compliance is no longer just a regulatory burden handled by the legal department.
Right. It's completely changed.
It has evolved into a competitive moat. If a B2B software as a service company is pitching a solution to a massive European bank and their embedded AI doesn't have a fully documented governance framework,
The bank's procurement team will kill the deal immediately.
instantly, enterprises are actively rejecting non-compliant vendors just to protect their own liability.
They have to. The financial penalties under the EU AI Act are too severe to risk integrating a non-compliant third-party tool, but early adopters are actually flipping this dynamic. They are using their compliance as a sales asset. The report details how utilizing consulting frameworks like AetherLink's AI lead architecture, which falls under their Aethermind and AetherDVE divisions, can automate about 80% of that mandatory compliance documentation.
That's a massive time saver.
It is. By embedding compliance into the development phase, companies are shrinking their time to launch from 12 weeks down to just 3 weeks. They get to keep the agility of a startup, but with a fully street legal vehicle that enterprise clients actually trust.
But, navigating the red tape is really only half the battle. A compliant chatbot is completely useless to a business if it doesn't actually perform well.
Oh, absolutely.
You can build the safest, most legally sound car on the road, but if it tops out at 10 miles an hour, no customer's going to want to drive it.
Right. Nobody wants a slow car.
Exactly. The conversation has to move from how to make these systems legal to how to make them exceptional. And according to the data, 64% of enterprise leaders are actively increasing their budgets specifically for multimodal chatbots to achieve that performance.
The evolution from text-only interfaces to multimodal systems is where the technology is moving at just breakneck speed.
Tell me more about that. What does multimodal mean in this context?
When we say multimodal, we're talking about systems that process text, voice, sentiment, and visual inputs all simultaneously.
Wait, all at once?
All at once. The AI isn't just parsing the raw text of a customer's message. It's actively analyzing the tone of their voice, reading the syntax of their typing, or even looking at an image they just uploaded, and it synthesizes all of those data points in real time.
The practical implications for customer experience there are just fascinating. The report actually highlights the deployment of emotion-aware bots.
Yes, those are incredible.
These systems are designed to identify a frustrated customer within seconds. They analyze the pace of the typing or a sudden shift to shorter, more aggressive sentences.
And proactively route that session to a human agent before the situation fully deteriorates.
Exactly. It is essentially reading the digital room.
And the mechanics of that handoff are vital. The AI doesn't just transfer the chat and leave the human agent flying blind. It summarizes the sentiment and the context instantly, so the human agent steps in, already knowing the customer's frustrated and exactly why.
That's a game changer for support teams.
It is. The data shows these emotion-aware escalations reduce customer churn by an average of 22%. There is this detailed example in the report of a Tampere-based Nordic fintech firm.
Oh, I saw that one.
Yeah. They deployed an emotion-aware system and managed to cut their customer service costs by 31% while simultaneously boosting their customer satisfaction scores from 72% to 89% in just 6 months.
Achieving both of those metrics at the same time is usually impossible. I mean, historically, cutting customer service costs meant degrading the experience, like pushing people to unhelpful FAQ pages.
Right, the endless loops.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here, they are saving money while actively making the customer happier. And a significant driver of that satisfaction, according to the sources, is the pivot toward voice technology.
Yes, voice is rapidly becoming the new primary interface.
Oh.
In 2026, 31% of enterprise chatbot interactions globally are happening via voice rather than text.
That's globally. What about locally?
In the Nordics, driven by high broadband penetration and a strong culture of early tech adoption, that number jumps to 39%.
Wow.
And it's moving from reactive to proactive. A utility company in southern Finland used proactive voice AI to reach out to customers with personalized energy-saving recommendations based on their specific usage patterns.
Did it work?
They achieved 51% higher engagement rates than traditional email outreach and directly reduced customer power consumption by 12%.
Okay, I do want to push back on the voice aspect slightly, just because, well, voice assistants often sound perfect in a highly controlled demo environment.
Sure, they always sound great on stage.
Right. But enterprise deployment is inherently chaotic. If we consider a thick regional Finnish dialect or, the reality of a company trying to integrate a cutting-edge voice bot with a 15-year-old legacy telephony system.
Oh, that's a classic nightmare.
It really is. The potential for catastrophic failure seems high. Do these systems actually hold up in the real world without completely hallucinating or constantly asking the customer to repeat themselves?
Well, that is the exact friction point that separates a successful deployment from a failed one. If a company simply plugs a basic, off-the-shelf text-to-speech API and application programming interface into a legacy phone tree, it is going to fail spectacularly.
The delay alone would be awful.
The latency alone will destroy the experience. Implementing enterprise-grade voice requires a highly specialized technological stack.
What does that stack look like?
You need advanced speech-to-text engines, voice biometrics to securely authenticate who is speaking, an incredibly low-latency response system so the AI doesn't leave a dead 3-second pause before answering.
Because in a natural conversation, a 3-second pause feels like an eternity.
Oh, absolutely.
It instantly breaks the illusion that you are interacting with an intelligent, helpful entity.
Exactly. And regarding the dialects, this is why off-the-shelf models struggle and specialized development is required. Teams like AetherDVE conduct localized acoustic modeling.
Acoustic model.
Yeah, they train the system on the specific phonetic nuances of regional dialects, whether that is in Tampere or elsewhere, to ensure high-fidelity comprehension. They also have to architect the compliance side of voice, because capturing and retaining biometric voice data is a massive liability under both GDPR and the AI Act.
Right. If the storage and purging mechanisms aren't built correctly from day one, you're in trouble.
Exactly.
If we're discussing regional complexities in Europe, the language barrier is really the elephant in the room here. A North American SME can generally operate entirely in English.
Must be nice.
Right. But a European SME does not have that luxury. They often need to be fluent across 8 to 15 languages just to handle their immediate neighboring markets.
Yeah, the fragmentation is real.
The 2026 data from Statista is just glaring here. 58% of European SMEs cite a lack of multilingual capability as their primary barrier to adopting a chatbot.
It is a massive structural hurdle. More than half of these businesses are sitting on the sidelines because a bot that only speaks English and German is totally useless if their growth market is in Sweden and Estonia.
Right.
This specific gap is what specialized platforms are aggressively targeting. The Aetherbot platform, for instance, is architected to deliver this natively.
How many languages can it handle?
It processes Finnish, Swedish, English, and over 60 additional languages, but it goes beyond literal translation to provide culturally aware responses.
Oh, that's crucial.
It is. For a Tampere business serving the broader Nordic and Baltic regions, having that multilingual infrastructure isn't a nice-to-have feature. It is a non-negotiable operational requirement.
So if we pull back and look at the macro level, there is a serious paradox in the data.
What's that?
We are discussing emotion-aware, multilingual bots that navigate complex EU compliance,
Yeah.
save millions in operational costs, and actively boost customer satisfaction. But the report reveals that the overall AI chatbot adoption rate among European SMEs is sitting at a dismal 8%. They are lagging behind North American SMEs by 32 percentage points.
Yeah, it's a huge gap.
If this technology is resolving so many critical business problems, why is the broader adoption rate so incredibly low?
Well, it's a combination of the classic innovator's dilemma and regulatory shell shock. Many European SMEs were burned or confused by the early drafts of the EU AI Act, so leadership teams basically hit pause.
They just waited it out.
Yeah, they decided to wait for the regulatory dust to settle before investing capital. But While the broad overall adoption sits at 8%, the growth trajectory in specific innovation hubs like Tampere is explosive. We're seeing a 340% deployment growth between 2024 and 2026 in these concentrated areas.
I mean, a 340% surge doesn't just happen organically. Something is forcing their hand.
It's driven by a market mechanism the report identifies as viral ROI.
Viral ROI.
Yeah, it works through sheer competitive panic. The metrics these early adopters are hitting are so disruptive that they fundamentally alter the unit economics of their industry.
Wow.
When an organization successfully implements one of these systems, they're reporting a 47% reduction in customer service labor costs, a 34% improvement in first contact resolution, and a 19% increase in sales conversions.
So if I am an SME and my direct competitor suddenly cuts their operational costs in half while providing faster, better customer service in 60 languages, I can't compete with their margins anymore.
You really can.
They can underprice me or outspend me on marketing, and I have no defense. The risk isn't just about missing out on a tech trend. It is about being fundamentally priced out of my own market.
Exactly, and that panic creates the viral adoption effect. Organizations rapidly follow suit to neutralize the threat, but this viral effect also means that the first movers in any given market segment are capturing about 60% of the market share before their competitors can even spin up a response.
60% is massive.
It is. To ground this in reality, the report provides a master case study of a Tampere-headquartered B2B SaaS company. They're a scale-up doing about 8.2 million euros in annual recurring revenue.
Okay, pretty solid size.
Right. They deployed Aetherbot across their support, sales qualification, and onboarding workflows.
And the operational shift for that company was profound. I mean, within 9 months of deployment, their average customer response time dropped from over 4 hours down to just 12 minutes.
12 minutes.
That single metric changes the entire customer relationship. It allowed them to reduce their support staff burden from 8 to 4.2 full-time equivalents, and 73% of tickets were resolved with zero human intervention.
That's incredible efficiency.
But more importantly, it removed all the friction from their sales funnel. By having the bot proactively qualify leads in multiple languages, their sales team converted significantly more prospects. 34% more conversions, actually.
Wow.
When you factor in the cost savings and the incremental revenue, they generated a net return on investment of 960,000 euros in year one alone.
And crucially for our European audience, they achieved that nearly €1 million return while getting fully certified as compliant under the EU AI Act in just 2 weeks using the AetherLink framework.
2 weeks, that's unbelievably fast.
It is. When a mid-sized enterprise sees that level of net benefit with a payback period of around 5 months, the technology transitions from being an experimental IT project to becoming critical foundational infrastructure.
Which brings us to the actual execution. If you're a CTO looking at your roadmap for 2026 and 2027, how do you actually architect this?
That's the big question.
Because we started by talking about the massive ChatGPT and Gemini duopoly, and then we explored the European rebellion with privacy-first models like Claude and Aetherbot. The traditional software mindset is to pick one vendor and lock in. Do you just pick one model and build everything around it?
The architectural best practice has entirely shifted away from vendor lock-in.
Okay.
The present standard for sophisticated enterprises is the multi-LLM strategy. An LLM, or large language model, is the underlying engine powering these bots. You no longer bind your entire organization to a single engine. You deploy multiple models synergistically, utilizing a central routing gateway that decides in real time which model is best suited for a specific prompt.
I want to make sure I understand the mechanics of that routing, though. How does the system practically decide where to send a task?
It routes tasks based on the specific strengths, cost, and compliance profile of each model.
Can you give an example?
Sure. For example, if a developer needs internal code generation, or the strategy team needs deep, complex reasoning on anonymized market data, the system routes that task via API to ChatGPT to leverage its dominant reasoning capabilities.
Makes sense.
For high-volume, real-time data sorting that doesn't touch personal customer data, the system might route that to Gemini to take advantage of its cost efficiency and speed.
But the moment a customer opens a chat window and starts typing in their account number or asking about a sensitive credit issue, the routing gateway recognizes the high-risk nature of the interaction. It instantly shifts that workload away from the duopoly and routes it through a privacy-first, EU-compliant model like Claude or Aetherbot.
Precisely. You maintain absolute compliance where it's legally mandated by the EU AI Act, ensuring data minimization and human-in-the-loop protocols are active. But you don't sacrifice the cutting-edge reasoning power of the major models for your internal unregulated tasks.
It essentially functions like building an executive team for your company. You would never hire one single person to act as your chief financial officer, your head of creative, and your chief legal counsel.
No, that'd be a disaster.
You hire specialists. In this architecture, you bring in ChatGPT as your brilliant chief strategy officer for complex problem solving. You bring in Gemini as your chief operating officer for high-volume efficiency.
I love this analogy.
And you bring in a highly regulated EU model like Aetherbot as your chief compliance officer to ensure every public interaction is legally sound, culturally fluent, and entirely risk-free.
That's a perfect way to look at it. And the underlying API infrastructure has evolved so that these distinct executives can hand off tasks to each other seamlessly in the background. The user never knows they're interacting with three different models.
It's totally invisible to them.
Yes. Managing that architectural complexity is exactly why the AI governance consultancy market is exploding right now. It requires real engineering skill to orchestrate that multi-LLM team, layer the EU-compliant guardrails on top of it, and design the system flexibly enough so that if a revolutionary new model is released next month, you can swap it into your executive team without having to tear down your entire software infrastructure.
As we bring this deep dive to a close, we have covered a massive amount of technical and strategic ground today. We went from the 86% global duopoly to the mechanics of emotion-aware voice bots handling regional dialects.
We really did cover a lot.
For the business leaders and developers listening right now, what is the single most important takeaway they should leave with?
For me, the paramount takeaway is the fundamental paradigm shift regarding compliance. The EU AI Act is no longer a defensive roadblock. It's an active offensive weapon in the B2B market.
That's a strong way to put it.
It's true. Organizations that figure out how to deploy auditable, transparent, and fully compliant AI architectures aren't just avoiding regulatory fines. They are winning enterprise contracts 40% faster than their non-compliant peers, simply because they remove the liability risk for their clients. Compliance is now a measurable revenue driver.
That reframing of compliance is a massive shift in perspective.
Yeah.
My number one takeaway is the sheer unforgiving speed of the viral ROI effect. When you look at an average annual return of 220% for customer service applications and payback periods of just 5 months,
That's wild.
the underlying math of running a business changes. The cost of waiting to implement these multimodal, multi-LLM systems is now significantly higher than the cost of adoption. If you wait for the market to settle, your competitor is going to capture that 60% market share first, and you may not be able to recover.
It's an incredibly high-stakes environment right now, and I'll leave you with a final thought to consider as you evaluate your own AI roadmaps. We discussed multimodal bots that can proactively identify customer frustration, analyzing typing speed, tone of voice, and micro-hesitations, allowing them to intervene and de-escalate before the situation worsens.
Right.
If an AI architecture can accurately identify that a customer is getting upset before the customer even fully realizes they are frustrated themselves, well, how is that level of proactive, almost psychic customer service going to fundamentally change the psychological dynamics of brand loyalty over the next 5 years?
That is a profound question. When your technology knows your customer's emotional state better than they do, the whole definition of a customer relationship changes. It ceases to be a mere transaction and becomes something closer to a partnership. We began this deep dive by talking about an incredibly powerful race car that simply wasn't street legal in Europe. But it turns out, if you build the right multi-LLM engine and navigate the compliance track intelligently, you aren't just making it street legal. You're building a vehicle that literally drives itself, reads the road conditions perfectly, and leaves the competition completely in the dust.
Well said.
For more AI insights, visit AetherLink.ai.